In today's album Spotlight on Classical Conversations, flutist Eugenia Moliner brings out all the tenderness and the intimacy of classical lieder from the likes of Franz Schubert, Gustav Mahler, Nikolai Medtner, and the centerpiece of it all is the beloved Song to the Moon from Antonin Dvorak's fairy tale opera Rusalka. So we have some real gems here, and Eugenia, thank you for sharing them with us and taking this time to have a conversation with us.
Thank you, Marie Claire. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the Song to the Moon, you leave us in suspense a little bit by placing it last on the album. But as I understand it, this is really the start of it all, the genesis of the entire album. Is that right?
That's correct. I was approached by a friend of mine who is one of our sponsors. And I mean our because I also play very often, most of the time, with my cavatina duo. And Tom Barron is a person who very often underwrites our commissions. And he came with this idea and he said, you know, I was listening to my favorite opera, Rusalka from Dvorak, and the Song to the Moon. I think that would make a wonderful piece for the two of you, flute and guitar. My husband plays the guitar. But at the time he could not play. He was having some issues with his hands. So I just said, okay, let's do this anyway and let's commission a piece for flute and piano. And I came up with the idea to do an introduction, theme, and variations. And I proposed this to the composer, Alan Thomas, and he thought it was a great idea. And I of course, I had the model of Trockenblumen by Schubert, you know, his wonderful piece for flute and piano. And I always like to think that would be one of the many that he would have composed, would he have lived longer, not only 31 years. But anyway, so I wanted to say that that was the model, no? And to do that kind of idea with the piece, and I think it came out really beautiful.
Yeah, I love that you set out for those variations on the theme. I mean, the theme of Song to the Moon is so beautiful. It feels like it's begging for it.
Mhm.
So here we have it finally. And how do you feel like the Mahler and Schubert, did you program those with it as a complement, or did it have another personal meaning to you?
So I was thinking once that piece was rolling, I was meanwhile thinking, okay, what do I do? I want to make an album that has a line and a connection of this kind of music, let's say romantic or neo romantic. And I thought first, of course, the first thing that came to my head are the Schubert already arranged songs. In the 19th century, Theobald Bohm, he arranged them for flute and piano. He chose from some of his cycles, some of the most beautiful, like Stangen, you know, or Gute Nacht, and so many from Winterreisen and from different cycles. And I said, okay, so what do we do? What else do we do? And I love Mahler. And it was by chance that I discovered these 5 songs, 5 lieder, that were already arranged by Ronald Kornfield. He is a German person. I never met him, but he, together with Emmanuel Pahud, Emmanuel Pahud edited those pieces, and he just took from these super famous leads that were written for voice and orchestra most of the time. Some were with piano and voice, but it's incredible that Mahler never wrote chamber music. Actually, he has 1 quartet, I believe, but to transform some of his most known pieces, like from the cycles of Das Lied van der Aarde or Kinderstoltellen, those, and to transform them into a flute and piano pieces was so beautiful. And when I heard Julien Badimant, there is a recording of his live performance playing those, I said, oh my God, I have to put this in this recording because I love them. And then Medtner came later. Medtner was an idea actually of my friend, the composer, Alan Thomas. He mentioned him and I said, oh, I never heard. And then I started researching a little bit, and then I came across his 8 poems, cycle of songs from, and then I found Twilight, which is the one I recorded. And this is originally for voice and piano. And the piano part is very substantial because Medtner was a pianist, and like 99% of his pieces are piano related, or piano solo, or piano with orchestra, or chamber music with piano. And I thought this was the most amazing piece. Alan was like, okay, let's do it. Are you sure it's gonna work for the flute? Because it has very long phrases, and very long. And singers are known for they can breathe little here, little there. But for flutists, we always want to be straight, and not to have to take too many breaths. But anyway, I think it's a beautiful kind of a piece that connects the entire city and puts the entire album together.
Thinking about the phrasing and everything, do you feel like the lyrics and the vocal expression of the original influenced your interpretation and performance?
I think it does, because I love reading. In the case, for example, of Mahler, what the lyrics are about. I read all the poems and everything, and of course it does. Of course, I can't put the words in my playing, but I try to by listening to singers like Thomas Kwassoff or Natalie Stutzman, who are my favorites ever, capture the essence of the music. The words are the first layer, let's say, and the music is behind those words. So I try with my colors and my expression and my dynamics, to capture that essence. Of course, the words, the lyrics are not there, but I just try my best as a flutist.
Since the Song to the Moon is kind of the one of the big highlights in the album, could you remind us, for those of us who haven't seen Rusalka or may haven't seen it in a long time, but what's happening in the opera and happening in the story at that point?
I know it's a mythology character. I know she's a nymph, and she's a kind of magic fairies in the forest, because as we all know, Dvorak comes from an area of Europe where all these mythologies were very strong in the 19th century and early 20th century still. So it is the story of this. You have similar stories, like, for example, in Ireland, the famous Undine, the fairy of the water there, and you have Rusalka is also a fairy of the water, kind of, and always the love and the break of the heart and all these stories behind. So it's very passionate, romantic, and dramatic all at the same time.
What is one of the most memorable moments about the process of creating this album, whether it be practicing the music or performing or reflecting on it?
To me, I wanted to mention when I was recording this and practicing for the recording, actually we had played some of the program already in concert before, because it's always better to do that before you record so that you feel freer, like you know the music in a different level. Not that not playing it in concert diminishes how you can do it in a recording, but you always feel a little bit like the piece better when you play it. So when I was preparing for that, knowing that I was going to record it, it suddenly came to me this feeling that I felt, because the music is so compelling. Like in the Mahler, for example, there is one of the songs that is inside of the cycle. Two of Mahler children died when they were infants, and he's telling in the words say that I still can hear them playing outside. That's the title of the song. So when I was playing that piece, suddenly came to me all this grief that I kept inside of me because of during the time of COVID. I couldn't, I do not know, express, but my brother had died in 2019. And I felt like playing this repertoire was like really like a catharsis of my emotions that were pouring out, and I was grieving my brother's death, and so sometimes it was even difficult to play. I wanted to cry, and in the same time, it was like a double sword thing. It was the silver lining. I felt to cry, and in the same time, I felt this was a wonderful thing I was enjoying so much doing, but I was feeling pain. So I do not know if by listening some of the pieces you can hear that Mahler was a genius, and in some of his pieces you can hear happiness and sadness at the same time. So that's how I was feeling too. I was feeling very, very sad, and at the same time very happy to be doing this and very privileged to be doing this, but very sad. So that's kind of the main story behind this album, that it's pain, but it's beauty. I think like life, these two things kind of live together.
That is so powerful. And first, let me extend my heartfelt sympathy for the grief that you're going through there. But I can also appreciate how special it is that you've honored your brother in this way with this music. Did he share your passion for music?
He was not a musician, but he was the reason why I became a musician. Because although I already had met other people who would help me on the way, he's the first person in my family who gave me support, like unconditional. He was only 2 years older than me, and he gave me unconditional support because I've encountered a little bit of resistance from my mother, and she didn't want me to be a musician originally, at the beginning. Later on, of course, she accepted it and it was fine, but my brother was always there for me, and this is why he deserves this and much more.
Well, Eugenia, clearly we have a listening journey ahead of us with the beauty and the pain living side by side. So we'll let the music take it from here. But thank you for sharing your time with us today for a conversation.
Thank you, Marie Claire. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.